I really did make $500 off AdSense last month, and I really did go out and buy a $4,000 RED cinema camera kit for filming YouTube videos. I think at this point a lot of you are probably pretty confused, maybe even upset that I'm spending a lot of money on something so pointless. So let's just take a few massive steps back here. I am a pretty big camera nerd. Honestly, I love cameras. I love taking photos, and as somewhat of a side effect, I love shooting video. So whenever I'm making my videos, I try to make them look as good as I reasonably can, and I spend a decent amount of money on my lighting and camera equipment. But normally, I don't spend more than about $700 on my main camera. Maybe I'll stretch that to $900 or so, but that's about it. I usually get something a few years old, like my Panasonic S5, that I can get good lenses for and use for a while and have it be good enough. Although honestly, this always has slightly bothered me a little bit though. Cameras are a giant part of my life, to the extent that it tends to be one of the first things a lot of people I know think of when they think of me. And, well, I've always wanted to have some of the best camera equipment, but I'm simply too cheap. Now, a normal person would do one of two things. Option one, suck it up and keep being cheap and just accept that is what I have, and it is good enough since it is the best value, and value is king. Number two, go out and splurge on the newest Sony a7 11X2 with a 45 2.8 ejecto-ceto lens. Me being cheap, felt I needed the best of both worlds because I deserve it. A good deal and the best. This led me to start searching for old cinema cameras that used to cost tens of thousands of dollars, so I could get all of the features without as crazy of a price tag. Maybe. There are a few things that I'm looking for specs-wise, and here are the biggest ones. Resolution and frame rate. I wanted something that could do at least 4K 60 FPS with the entire sensor, without any cropping in while doing high frame rates. A lot of cameras will crop in on your sensor when you are doing 4K high frame rates. Codec. I wanted something that could record in RAW. The benefits to this are you can get much more information out of the camera sensor to mess with in post. You don't like how this color looks? Change it. Think the shot was ever so slightly too bright? Go ahead and fix it. Easy. Having something a little bit easier to rig out and put big batteries on compared to my Panasonic S5 was also a pretty important aspect of the purchase to me. The biggest brand I was interested in was RED cinema cameras, mostly because they're very, very cheap comparatively, the color science is pretty nice in general, and a lot of REDs hit all of my specs, requirements that I had. I specifically wanted a RED Raven because it was cheap and they all came with Canon EF mounts, which is a great lens mount because you can get basically any type of lens you could ever dream of since the Canon EF ecosystem has been around for so long and has provided so many options for so many years. Oh, and they're cheap too. That's a big part of it. The RED Raven is basically, in my opinion, the cheapest RED that is still usable today without all of the growing pains older RED models had with the Mysterium X sensor or just the entire DSMC-1 ecosystem that was a mess. If you do look for a RED, which you shouldn't, avoiding DSMC-1 and going right to DSMC-2 or even 3 would be a pretty good choice from my understanding of their lineup and the flaws the DSMC-1 system has. So the search began, and it was actually a really long search over the course of multiple months. RED prices are very weird, and at some point in my search, the RED Komodo had a price drop, which made me wait even longer to make sure I didn't buy something that was going to instantly plummet in value. After honestly a couple of months of browsing listings, I came up on this listing for a RED Raven. This particular one had low hours and was listed for just a bit below $4,000, which after taxes and shipping would be way too much. So after some negotiation, I brought him down to the point where it was just a bit under $4,000 with all of the shipping and tax. What did I just do? Oh man. I mean, this is gonna sound crazy, but this is kind of a good deal. These cameras were $6,000 when they came out, just for the brain. The sensor is old, but just because something is old doesn't mean it ever stopped being good, and it can still be easily rigged up and produce great images. There really is value here, even if I sound completely insane, which I mean, I kind of am, but man, what am I doing? This is such a bad idea. I mean, the bit rates on these go up to 1100 megabit per second. That's faster than my internet, and over 5 times the bitrate of my current camera. It also takes these giant batteries that will take forever to charge up, especially because I only have one free USB-C charger in my house that can supply enough power to charge these things. Thankfully though, the sponsor of today's video, Ugreen, is going to make it possible for me to actually use my RED. Shooting with it gives absolutely massive video files, but with the Ugreen DXP 4800 Plus, I'm able to easily ingest my footage from both my main camera with the SD card read up front and my RED mini mags with 10 gigabit USB-C ports on the front. The DXP 4800 Plus has a 5-core Intel Pentium Gold processor and 8 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. that's upgradable all the way up to 64 gigabytes and a 10 gigabit port. Love that. I have mine set up with 4 Toshiba 14 terabyte enterprise hard drives, which leaves me with more than enough storage for all of my RED footage. I can also access these files from almost any device. So if I want to export a file and see how it looks on multiple devices, I can pull it up on my phone, laptop, or desktop, even on my MacBook. That's every operating system. I also take a lot of photos, and a really neat feature of the DXP 4800 Plus is they have local AI built into the NAS software, so you can search your photos simply by inputting keywords or descriptions without having to upload your photos to the internet for Big Brother to look at, so you're not giving up privacy for convenience. They also sent me their very small and powerful Nexode 100-watt charger to charge the giant batteries the RED takes. This means if I need to plan for a shoot, I can charge both my RED batteries, phone, and MacBook off of one tiny charger without having to worry about everything taking days to charge. Trust me, this is much better than having to cycle through various chargers to charge everything. So thank you again, Ugreen, for sponsoring this video and making this insane project possible. If you'd like to pick up either a NAS Sync DXP 4800 Plus for yourself or a Nexode 100-watt charger, go ahead and check out the description for Ugreen Black Friday deals, up to 40% off. Oh, that's a lot of percent off. There's one neat thing I didn't mention though about the value of these. I bought a full kit, which added a ton to the price. If you just get the camera without anything else, it's like less than half the price. So why did I get a full kit for this thing? Wouldn't I want to save money and shoot with just the basic camera, since, I mean, the image quality is the same, right? Especially with a kit that comes with used batteries and used storage. I mean, for such an expensive camera, wouldn't you want fresh batteries and storage so you know it's reliable? Or maybe the exact monitor and side handles you want? I mean, a major selling point of cinema cameras is being able to set them up exactly how you want them to be set up for whatever you're doing or whoever's using it. Okay, I can't do this. Yeah, I'm memeing. For batteries, you can get a somewhat cheap adapter and use standard V-mount batteries. That's fine. But there's this fun thing about older RED cameras. Everything is proprietary, even controlling the camera. You cannot use this camera out of the box, and you cannot use this camera with just a standard monitor to control it. To control it, you must either use their monitor with touch controls or shell out hundreds of dollars for this side handle. That, all things considered, is kind of lame. I mean, it works, but what if I'm left-handed? What if I don't want to use a touchscreen to control the settings on my camera? I personally hate using touchscreens for camera controls, especially if the weather is bad or the sun is out or shit. Maybe I just want the settings to be responsive and not laggy. But then I have to get this side handle and only this side handle. What the hell? These monitors are expensive too, man. And to be honest, not even that great, even especially in direct sunlight, but fine. They want it set up their way, I'll take it, is what I would say if I didn't also have to mention the storage situation. This is how you store footage coming out of a RED camera, specifically DSMC2 cameras. This is a 256 gigabyte RED mini mag. This is $300. You cannot use anything else to record raw footage out of these cameras. Just this. Now you might be thinking, there has to be a reason for this, right? High bit rates, reliability, stability, something, another. Well, to be honest, I am optimistic too. So let's take this guy apart and see what's in here. Taking this apart is pretty easy. Just a few little screws and we are in. And I honestly kind of knew this ahead of time, but this is still hilarious to me. This is literally an SATA SSD and an adapter with some thermal pads. Don't get me wrong. It's an enterprise SSD, but it's an enterprise SSD I can go on eBay and get for $45 or even cheaper. Well, these RED mags are made in the hundreds of dollars for honestly just SATA SSDs that, to my understanding, you can't replace. That's really sad. Look, here's the thing. All of this really does sound kind of like a scam. And to extent, well, I mean, it is. But here's the thing, all right? Cinema gear is extremely expensive. So if you're shooting short films, documentaries, or I mean, being a YouTuber is a totally legit profession nowadays, right? And having a proper camera with good image quality and features can become really, really expensive, like in the tens of thousands of dollars expensive. So when people are looking for cheap camera gear, they may come across these and think, oh man, I could save so much money and buy a RED. I am technically just taking one for the team here, right guys? Right? All right. It's kind of expensive to keep up with, not under warranty and kind of a scam. But what about usability and image quality? How are those? Well, initially I wanted to just have this powered without batteries to do some testing. But after some Googling, an off-brand charger is about $80, which I am not going to buy. Which when I wrote that I didn't buy, and then I did buy it. So I got a 40-something milliamp hour battery to use. So after getting my battery, I assembled the camera in a really satisfying way, by the way, and was ready to shoot. I took it out with my Canon 24-105 f4 to get some test footage. Man, this thing is beautiful. The footage just comes out so damn nice looking. I mean, you can't beat 4K 120 FPS footage. It looks amazing. I mean, honestly, between the colors, dynamic range, slow motion, it's stunning. I will say though, when it comes to low light, this is absolutely horrible at it, but I mean, hey, no one's perfect. Footage looks good when you're in the right place. One of the biggest reasons I specifically wanted this camera was RED's raw video codec. This lets you capture more data from the sensor and adjust more in post. So for example, this shot was way underexposed and on a normal camera would be entirely unusable. But all I have to do to make it usable on the RED is drop the footage into Premiere and I can bump the ISO up and post without any quality loss at all. It's as if I shot the footage this way. Even besides this, you have a crazy amount of room for playing with this footage when it comes to color grading or adjusting how the image looks, especially when you create with RED's tools. Honestly, you can do so much with this footage. It actually puts it far outside my capabilities and skills, which is hard for me to say, but it honestly is true. The footage is generally pretty easy to work with, as well as you have a pretty beefy PC and are editing off a decent SSD. I'm using an Enterprise 2TB Intel SSD, and I mean, if that doesn't work, nothing will. I did notice sometimes though Premiere will just crash when editing the RED footage though. Maybe it's just me and my system. My system is pretty unstable. Actually, my system is very, very, very unstable. If you want to see me fix that, subscribe, because that's going to be a thing. And it will be expensive and a mess. Either way, not everything is great though. The battery life, even with 2 batteries, it cost me over $200 total, which isn't even that expensive for V-mount batteries. I still hardly could get even a full hour of recording if I didn't miss the shot, because it takes almost a full minute for this thing to power up and be usable. And while it's powering on, the fan's ramping up, border on how loud some 4U servers are. And if you're like me, you would think that's pretty cool, but it could cause issues if you did want to record audio directly on the camera. And the screen that you're supposed to use with these also isn't that great. It makes it hard to record in most situations where you're not using the camera just by yourself, looking down at it, which is pretty unfortunate. There's also the issue of file sizes. File sizes are absolutely giant. You do have multiple compression ratios to choose from though when recording. I typically go for 8:1 as it seems like a decent mix of compression and quality, but even then, footage for single projects can easily enter the hundreds of gigabytes without even trying. I mean, it's rough, but that's what you get when you want to use an old cinema camera and have access to the RED files. I mean, man, what a beast. Basically, this thing is expensive, it's unreliable, it's difficult to work with, and I freaking love it. Too bad there is not a universe that exists where I will end up keeping it though. If you do want to see a universe where I ended up keeping something though, check out my MacBook video. Another very expensive project that was very expensive. So please watch it. Please.